Welcome back to Face the State on this Sunday morning. With us now to talk about what Mr. Stefanowski had to say is the Chief of Staff to Governor Ned Lamont. He is Ryan Drajewicz. And Ryan, thanks for being here with us on the program today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I want to ask you, what you think of what Mr. Stefanowski had to say?
Well, look, I think, first and foremost, I think everyone's entitled to their opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And so the facts in this instance, and I think first and foremost, the tolling, which really, this isn't about tolling. This is about Connecticut's future in transportation, the state of our current infrastructure. First and foremost, I think campaigns are about ideas. And it's an opportunity to get out there and hear from voters and have an understanding. But the notion that the governor's evolved his position is really one of leadership. And quite frankly, there's a big difference between being a candidate and being a governor. And as a governor, the responsibility is to lead. First and foremost, to put yourself above, put the state in front of yourself. And stare at something and try to put the state's best interest in place. And so when he's looking at that, trying to figure out what the right decision is, talking with the leading experts, made the decision to expand his position on tolling and begin to work with the legislature on both options, and felt that that was the most responsible thing to do relative to the current state of infrastructure and what is needed to get us out of the rut that we're in right now. As
you know, this is a difficult and very controversial subject, and the polls show that people do not want tolls, and some of the figures that are being thrown around, or it might cost a driver $800 a year to commute back and forth from Hartford to New Haven. Yep. How do you sell that? Because a lot of people they say they're overtaxed in our state.
Sure. Well, so the same poll, if you dissect it, says actually over 50% of people would support polls if they knew that it was going directly dedicated to transportation through the constitutional lockbox and mandated by the federal government, which is what tolls would do. But again, Dennis, this is less about tolls versus our current state versus our future state. And now we're going to have a discussion about how to get there. Nothing is a done deal relative to where we are. The debate is just starting. It came out of committee. It's an opportunity for the Bob Stefanowskis of the world and the Republicans that truly come to the table, help shape this, drive the narrative. The governor's primary objective is to look at how to fund this in a long-term sustainable way. I haven't been around Hartford long enough, but to me, it's up is down is up, is that you now have the Republicans saying the path through this is to take out the state's credit card, put this whole thing down on the credit card, 100% on the backs of Connecticut taxpayers, plus interest for God knows how long. The governor's plan, the Democrats' plan, looks at this to say, no, there's a better way to achieve this relative to the investment that it's going to require. And that is a way in which to target out-of-state drivers. And that's why we're looking at the four primary roads are I-91, 95, the Merritt Parkway, and 84, which are the primary roads where most out-of-state drivers drive on. And I drive, as you know, from Fairfield to Hartford every day. I'm on 95, Merritt Parkway, and 91. Every day I make a point to count how many out-of-state license plates I see. Today was 39, yesterday was 42, I bet tomorrow will be something similar. We've got to do something about that. It's an opportunity to do this without putting it on the state's credit card.
When Mr. Stefanowski says this is, that Governor Lamont is introducing what is the biggest tax increase in Connecticut history, what's your response to that?
Again, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts. What the governor is looking to do, what we just spoke to about in transportation, I believe is the smart play. What he's looking to do with his budget is to primarily, what he's referencing there is the expansion of the sales tax. That is done primarily to be a more fair and equitable way of looking at our sales tax, which used to be the workhorse of our state's economy. Now it's a show horse at best. There's no rhyme or reason why a nail salon is taxed but a barber shop isn't, why the services in the state house are taxed but they're not in a courthouse. None of it makes any sense. And so the chief, the primary objective of looking to do that was try to make that more fair and equitable. Look, and we had recent good news. This is just not just Ryan or the governor talking, right? Standard & Poor's, for the first time in 18 years, took a look at the state of Connecticut, took a look at what the governor proposed in his budget, and increased our rating. First time in 18 years. That's the outside, that's the market responding to Governor Lamont's position, both on the budget and his leadership.
Two other points that Mr. Stefanowski brought up. One is, in terms of state pensions and state benefits, things like that, wants to see that cut. And he also says there's $1 billion that can be saved in the state budget. Is there?
So I would say to Bob Stefanowski, and I also say to you and others in the media, show me it, Bob. There's $1 billion to cut. Show me it. And so I've gone through this thing. I've taken a look at it. The easy thing to do is to sit here and say there's $1 billion in there. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. He did it for the 6 months on the campaign trail. I'm telling you right now, taking a look at this, what the governor is looking to do is right-size the state government, going agency by agency, making sure we have the right horse for the course, holding agencies accountable to outcomes driven by metrics and data. We'll do our job there. But the state employees are some of the greatest employees that we have in the country. They've given a lot. There's an opportunity there for us to work together to get more efficient through time, but I think Bob's barking up the wrong tree. Do
you think Stefanowski has a motive in coming out and saying this?
I
think he's thinking of running?
I have no idea. I wouldn't begin to be able to say that. Look, I respect anyone that steps into the arena. I encourage you to step into it with ideas, and step into it with ideas and facts.
Let's go behind the scenes a little bit at the governor's office, because I know that this is, I mean, obviously it's a stressful time for the governor as well. He has to introduce a lot of things that are not necessarily popular, some medicine, so to speak, some untasty medicine, unpalatable to many people. What kind of stress is he undergoing in terms of, when he looks at the budget, is it worse than he expected, the situation?
I think in the early days, when we looked at, $3.7 billion is $3.7 billion. And that's the hole, the gap that we needed to bridge in the biennium. And you looked at particularly over the last 8 years and the cuts and the raising of the income tax. The governor has a responsibility looking down at this from the level above and saying, this budget needs to represent kind of his philosophy with respect to how he wants to grow the economy but acknowledge the gap that's in front of us. And I think the governor's position, holding the line on the income tax, saying that that's something that he's not going to do, is important. I think that there's for a myriad of different reasons that we could go into. And then looking at trying to have a more fair and equitable sales tax. And then also, what he talked about in his budget address was not a Wisconsin moment. Let's have a Connecticut moment. Let's show that collective bargaining works. Come to the table. Let's work together. Let's do it. And so we're having tremendous conversations with our friends in labor with respect to how we look at health care reform, being more efficient within the membership, and that's great, and that's exactly what this administration represents. People coming together, open door, bigger table.
How important is David Lamont to your administration and to Connecticut's turnaround in the governor's judgment?
Sure. So David is very important. So David is a integral part with respect to how we are looking at the overall economic policy of the governor's office, and we're looking at various means, various things like economic opportunity zones, which he's very experienced in doing in the private sector, working with various municipalities and creating some of these. And so it creates an interesting opportunity for us. He has, as you heard Bob say, a very credible background with respect to having done these type of things over the last 10 years. And so he's very important, has the full support of the governor and myself, and we're looking forward to him officially joining us next week.
Ryan Drajewicz from the governor's office, Chief of Staff, we thank you for being in the program today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we'll see you back here again.